Good morning. It's the day after me painting this where 48 people commented they think it's awful. So this is the cobalt that is on there. And this is called Peacock, and this is going to be one of my accent colors. These are the brushes that I used yesterday. Actually ended up not using the French tip, but I used these yesterday. You can see they still have a little, and they're still damp a little bit. They've been drying overnight. These are chip brushes, and this one, I don't know if you can see the difference, is in its natural state. This one, I just took a little snip off to make the, see, to make it a little bit more even there. So I want one that's got a little fluff, and I want one that's got a little bit more sharper edge. And so I'm opening up the Peacock. I am not going to be using the Mr. bottle, at least I don't think I'm going to be. I love this color. And so I'm going to try this technique that I've been wanting to work on. And I think this, I'm going to be in the way. Let's see. And I have a fan on behind me to cool off, so I'm going to stay up. I'm going to work on this part right here. I'm just going to dip a chip brush, see how much is on there? Just a little bit to start with. And then I'm going to add to it. Of course, as I use this brush, it's going to get more and more paint all throughout it. And I'm actually going to use the side of the brush here with some paint too. So let's do this and see how many more people are going to get upset. So I'm just going to start. I think by using this brush, I'm using the one that wasn't cut. Wait, no, this is the one that's cut. Never mind. I was going to say, I want to make sure I decided which one I was using. A little bit more. I might get a little bit sharper edge on this. Again, we're going for like a boho. So all of you who are upset that I painted it a cobalt blue might be upset that I'm using boho. Yeah, I wish a little bit sharper edge, but as it gets coagulated up in here, it's gonna be fine. So just right now working on, there we go, getting those accents on there. Dip in a little bit. A little bit more. So as I was saying yesterday, the cobalt is the base, and then this Peacock, which I hadn't decided which color yet, but now I have it. Okay, here, get these. So I am going around and I am highlighting the details. And by using the chip brush and letting it splay out, and don't worry about where it splays more here and less here, just gonna keep on using the same application. Now, I'm going to highlight this part. This is where I'm going to start using the edge of my brush. There we go. Paint is getting down. And I'm turning my brush and using the side, the flat side, to highlight. And yes, it got a little bit on here, and that's okay. Now, you're going to take each one of these little things and you're going to turn your brush sideways and try to highlight. Yes, you're going to get on different points, and you want to make sure to get underneath too. So you're not only just highlighting from above, you're also doing from below and on the sides. Letting the brush tap, tap, tap on there. Getting a little bit of a boho vibe here. Putting a little bit of paint on the side now, instead of just on the tips. And I'm going to highlight this part real quick. Okay, now I'm going to get in this inset here. You actually use a lower point, and I'm going to turn my brush and try to just hit that lower part. I'm going to get all around that. There we go. Now I'm going to get this started down here, I did exactly what I did here. I'm just flicking and pulling and letting the brush do the work using chip brush 2-inch. We have these, they are either $5 or $6, and right now I think just this week if you buy $50 worth of paint supplies, you get one for free. And I'm just using paint in the cap and turning my brush. So I'm using the side of my brush, the flat part, see, and the tips. This is just a chip brush. Again, I'm going to show you why I left the drawers, the drawers in, and why I left the knobs on when I was painting this base coat of cobalt. First, let me just go up here and paint this. So, if you take a knob off and paint it, it won't be organically where it needs to be on each drawer, because each knob has different wear patterns from how much it's been used. These knobs may have more wear pattern than these because they're upper, and people tend to put the thing they're going to use the most in the upper drawer. I'm using the side of the brush right now to hit every one of these highlights and lowlights that I am called highlighting. Some people like to use their low lighting first, but I'm going to highlight first. Then we're going to come back and hit it with another color that we're going to do the exact same thing all around this entire piece again. So it's really important to let your base coat dry. I let it dry overnight because I had things to do, including deal with death threats from painting what they say is a true antique, but this piece had veneer issues, on and on and on. But I let it dry overnight because I don't want the paint to come back off. I want it to accent and not pull back. So you could have waited an hour and done this, but I had things to do after I was painting. So I'll paint with this again. Then this inset and this inset. Hence why I didn't take the drawers out. Because you want each drawer to have its own distinct personality. It does. Like this one has veneer cracking here. You can't see it anymore because the cobalt covered it up. It tricks the eye to see one color, so you don't see the damage, so to speak, in the veneer. Before, when it wasn't painted, you would have seen that and been like, it's chipped. So that's why it's important. Now, sometimes you can go back over these if you don't like how it took the first time, or you can just let it go. So I'm going to let it simmer. And then I'm really liking how it's doing here. Now on the other side that I haven't done yet, can you see that? It may not over there do exactly what it did over here because different wear and tear. People tend to have more tear on the right hand bottom from feet or wear and tear than they do in the left. I don't know why. I've just found that to be true for my furniture that I find at estate sales and such. So I went ahead and just worked on this section. Sometimes people like to work on each section, each side, to make it more congruent, but with this, the technique is boho messy or boho, crazy. So let it do what it wants to do. Each drawer, each knob is going to be different. And take that appreciation. That's what makes it unique and a custom piece. Chip brush. Again, the brushes do fall out, the little pieces. So just pull them off as they come off. It is a chip brush. That's why they're not that's why they're $6 compared to $30 that last you years and years. These are meant to only last you one or two things, but actually if you just wash this out and then trim the hairs just a tiny bit with again, I trim this one. See, this is how it is normally. I trim this one. If each project you wash it out and trim it and trim it and trim it, you can get a good 20 uses at least out of these and use it for accenting. Like I could use this brush for accenting for tons of projects over the years. Okay, now I'm working on the piece. It's a wardrobe. It's going to be also boho gypsy chic or boho messy, or some people call it Western boho. If you watched the other video, I am still using this same chip brush that I did the whole vanity on, and I am still using Peacock by Dixie Belle. And we sell this. This is a 16-ounce jar to give you an idea, and I've opened this and it's only been used about a tenth. So I'm starting on this. I've already started the top, so you can see a little bit of hint of that. But I'm going to dip my brush, my chip brush, and just pull the edges off, so I'm kind of scraping it off the sides. And then I'm going to come in and just use the side of the brush to highlight this particular panel. So I'm just going to work on this section first. I am going to be in the way of the camera, and I do have a fan on, so it's hard to hear, but it's hot. No air conditioning. So I'm just flicking this to the side. I'll stop here because I'm emphasizing just this panel. Now I'm flicking down. I've already done the side of this panel, but I'm going to now turn it sideways to get that line. Then turn it sideways and come back up, kind of outlining this. Come this way, this way. These chip brushes, little bristles will come off. You just pull them off. What's great about this chip brush is perfect for this technique for boho chic, because it splays out the brush as you use it. And just like an old broom, the more you splay, see how it's getting worse and worse? That's good. More texture. Okay, now I'm going back this way. So first I go this way, and then I switch and hit and highlight just this panel all the way around again. There. Now I'm going to just turn it, use the actual brush to kind of outline the cabinet here. Just going back over it. I'm going to go ahead and hit that knob that everyone was upset that I didn't take out. I just painted right over it, and that's why I did it. Because with this technique, you need the knob in to be able to distress it. Now, I am going to dip into the paint. This particular part I'm working on does not have any molds or relief like you see on the next side. I'm just pulling that off, pulling off the edge, scraping that off a bit. And then I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to flick. And then I'm going to come in, pull sideways, pull sideways. I'm going to leave the center for now. Back up. Now I'm going to turn my brush over, so I'm using the side here and side here. So you're using both sides and getting the paint. It changes up the paint pattern so you don't have a definite. It's more abstract and loose. I'm just using feather-like strokes to get this on. Letting the brush do all the work, and then I said I left that little part in the middle. Now I'm going to just gingerly, lightly go over it. I'm going to emphasize those points that I put on there by putting pressure on my brush to get some of that paint to come out. I know it looks weird on camera, but up close, I promise you, it's picking up all the detailing. And then I'm going to come back and emphasize this particular panel. bit on this handle, and I'm going to pull away from that handle. Okay, again, I know that looks rough on camera because you're only seeing like what looks like stripes. Up close, it's beautiful. I'm going to continue to do this on each. I'm going to work on this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, all the way down, and do each little section to emphasize each section's independent bloopers or characters or flaws, which become very good character building things. So again, may look like a hot mess from there, but I'm telling you, it's gonna look amazing once it's done. And we're not done. We're gonna do this again with a whole nother color. So we have cobalt, we have peacock, and then we're gonna have another color, and then we're gonna probably do some metallic. So this is gonna happen about 3 or 4 more times, and then we're gonna clear coat it and seal it with about 3 to 4 layers. So we got ways to go. Hey everybody, so I am working on this piece now. I have distressed it, I have sanded it, I have painted it in 2 different colors, cobalt and I believe peacock. Yes, it is peacock. And now I'm going to be using honky tonk red. Do you want me to show you how much is left in this jar? Do you see how it's like not even liquidy? So what I'm doing is I'm taking my mister bottle and I'm going to spray directly into there. And then I am gooping it up, meaning I am just going to stick this little brush and I'm just dabbing in the bottom, and then I'm offloading off the corners. So this is why I say never throw away that little bit left in your jar. And we are going to be adding this layer of paint. I was going to start here, but I think I'm going to start over here because that's more exciting for most of you guys. But I'm going to be going backwards. So here we go. I know I'll be in the shot a little bit. There is a vanity right behind me, so I can't go any further than that. And we're just going to start by taking this Gothic BoHo up a notch. And I'm just going to go simply along the edge, accenting. And since this is very similar on the other side, meaning it's the same thing, I'm going to go ahead and hit that up too. A lot of times I'll just work on one part and then come over to do the other side, but because these are similar, I'm going to just do that. Now see how it caught, I don't know if you can catch that, on the edge? You don't worry about that. And I'm going to use a lot of water because this is really dried out in the bottom. And this is the best kind to use when you have leftover paint. Again, hardly any left, and I'm going to offload off the side. Flay out the brush. I don't want the brush to be all goopy. I want it to be on there evenly. So splay it out. Then I'm going to come up here and just start. Yeah, I got to see. I'm going to drag this across, just letting it hit those highlights. I'm going to drag this across, just letting it, again, hit those highlights. And whatever it misses, it misses. Then I'm going to come in here and just go like this and just do the opposite on the other side. And then I'm going to go underneath here, accenting, and then in through here, and in through here, and hitting those triangles. So I'm going to re-dip and offload again. Really offloading. And this is like a little triangle piece here. I'm just going to highlight the tops, side to side, bottom, bottom. There you go. Now again, this triangle piece is accented right here. I'm going to go side to side, bottom. It's not the same on each one because the brush is just grabbing where it wants to grab. I'm letting the brush do a lot of the work. There. I'm going to come over here and do the same thing on this piece. I'm going to go down and around. I'm going to go down and around. I'm going to go underneath this accent. I'm going to go underneath this accent. And there's that little triangle part again. I'm going to highlight that and go underneath. My brush is hitting right here, lower. That is okay. Let the brush do the work. This is custom painting. Each one's going to be a little bit different. Now, this accent here, I'm just going to take my brush along, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go, come back around, and then I'm going to come back over. And that way, I could switch sides and really see it skipped here, but that's the beauty of it. You want it to be an organic, natural look. If for some reason you paint this in the honky tonk red and you really, really hate that it got on there too much, go back to your cobalt or your peacock, put it on a brush and just lightly go over it, and it's basically erasing. So you use your paint to erase. You want to use the base color, and because the base color is cobalt, the highlighter is the peacock. If I'm erasing something on the top of here, I would use the peacock to erase. If I'm doing something here, I would use the cobalt and just barely dry brush, sort of, offload your brush, go over the red. It'll erase it, let it dry for a good 20-30 minutes, and then go back and add to it or leave it as is. So again, I'm just going to let the brush do the work. And now I'm going to start working. I'm dipping back in. I'm dipping in a lot. Again, I wish this picked up. There is none left. Do you see that? It's really just the end of the bottle. But I've kept this jar for a while. And even though it had dried out in the bottom, I just reactivated it with that water mister. And now I'm getting a lot of good use. So I am going to now start boxing in this part up here. Come down the side. Come across, and then normally I would just stay working on this, but because I did that, I'm going to go ahead and do this here. And see how it went down? That's an oopsie, but it's not an oopsie, meaning let that be organic. It's not the same as over here, but when you're done and you step away from it, that's the part that's going to make this really beautiful. Let the brush do this work. Now, I'm going to come here, and I'm going to highlight the edge of that, and I'm going to come back over here on the same one on the opposite side. Yeah, I'm probably blocking. I know I'm pretty far away and you probably can't see this very well, but this is as close as I can get right now. You can always go back on a replay and zoom in. Now I'm going to outline and low light and highlight that. I'm dipping back in, making sure I'm offloading my brush on the edge. And I'm going to just let the brush kind of do the flow, keeping my hand very loose, my wrist really loose, and letting the angle of the brush get in there. Now you're starting to see it popping out. And again, I am just dipping in and offloading. So you'll continue to do this all around the project. I'm going to work on this now, and then I may come back and film the part that's flat, meaning there's no accenting on this cabinet part, so I'll come back to that. Okay, now I'm working on the parts right, oh, I hate doing this, here, the drawers. I can't point. I'm still dipping in and offloading right out of this jar. I've already accented this one, leaving the center okay. So what I'm doing is I'm going to highlight, and again, for those who ask, why did I leave the drawers in when I painted it? That is why I left the drawers in. Some projects you leave the drawers in. I still painted around the insets and took the drawers out individually, painted around the edge, but stuck them back in and then painted the cabinet. That way, each one of these drawers is individual, has its own accenting, so that's why you leave. Sometimes you have to leave the drawers in. And why did I leave the knobs on? Same reason. Got a lot of like, why are you doing that messages, but trust me, there was a method. And that is the method. Kind of let it do its own thing. Now, come down this accenting here. Some of the paint's picking up a lot more in spots than others. It may look kind of like, oops, that doesn't look right because there's too much in one spot and not on another. Let it go. Step away. Let it dry. And that's, again, what makes it a custom. That's why you spend all this time. I could just dry brush real quick and be done in like 20 minutes, but no. I'm treating each one individually. Now, we're here again to this great accenting piece. I'm gonna get into the insets with my brush. Yeah, it's picking up. Try not to block the camera. Offloading, and then I'm gonna go into this inset, and there's an inset here, and then I'm gonna box it in by doing the sides. Highlight this upper part and highlight, let me dip back in. This upper part, meaning it's raised, not an inset. I'm gonna sit down. I do that a lot. Dipping, constantly dipping, just back in this jar and offloading. Now, I'm gonna let the brush take all these little accents and highlight. Same thing here. Just gonna let the brush go where it wants to go, freehanding it, let my wrist be very loose. There, so this one has more paint on it than the one up there, and that's okay. Again, custom pieces, you just let it go. And then if you decide this is too much, again, take your cobalt blue, which is the original base, put it on a brush, very tiny brush, and get it all wiped off, offload it, till your brush has very barely any more, and just go over this real quick, and it'll diffuse the red and pull it back if you feel like it's just too much red. It's like an eraser. Use your paint as an eraser, just like when you do glazes and wax. You want to put a clear on first, then you can have a base to erase back to. So again, I'm going to now go to the next one. Now this drawer sticks out a little bit. Naturally, it does not go in all the way. It's because it's a custom piece, it's wood, and over the years it settles and expands. And so each drawer, again, is different in the way that it sits into it. It's not exactly flush like some of the mass-produced items nowadays. So I just treat each one individually with respect to how it wants to function. And so now I'm doing the bottom drawer right here, and it has lips, so I'm going to highlight it, and some of the brush is going to hit on the top of the next one, and that's okay. Box this in, box this in. And that's why I left the drawers in, for all of you who are freaking out about leaving the drawers in. I don't think you can see me now. I'm way down here. I'm gonna go ahead and just do this, and then I'll be off camera. For the bottom piece, I'll readjust. Highlighted, not. Boho, not. Prime colors are not for everyone. Neutral colors usually sell faster. I've said this over and over again. This is not what this is. This is Gothic BoHo. That's all that is. So it's different. Not every piece is going to be cookie cutter. You're not going to like it all. You're either going to love it or hate it most of the time. And that's okay. I have a variety of customers. If I just painted everything white, life would be boring. All right, so now we have 3 steps in. We had the cobalt, we had the peacock, and then we had the honky tonk red. Now, next step, moonshine metallics in gold digger. You could also do this in silver. There's 3 different silver colors in moonshine metallics, but right now I am going for a little bit of gold digger. I am using a chip brush. I have dipped in and wiped off. And I'm going to be using mostly the flat side. I might use the bristles, but I think I'm going to use the flat side of the brush. So I am dipping into Moonshine Metallic. You see it? It's an opaque metallic, meaning if you were to paint this whole piece in this color because you wanted a metallic, fancy, all one gold color thing, you would have to do about 4 coats. I'm using it as another highlighter. So just bear with me as I start. I don't know if the camera will keep up with this. I am just tapping. Come up here a little bit, and I'm going to work in sections. Now I would think if the sun was coming in, this would get more than this. So I'm going to maybe not put some on certain places. Right now, I am just highlighting the parts that would catch the sun and the glimmer of this metallic. Now you'll see while I'm hitting it with the side of my brush, it's catching right here. I'm letting the brush do its job. It would highlight exactly like that, catching whatever stands up. And down here, that bottom piece took a little bit more paint. That is perfect. So I'm going to stick with this for a second. I'm going to come over a little bit, and I'm only doing the left-hand side for right this second. I'm just going to come over. Now I'm going to let the brush do its thing. Again, I'm just using the side. I'm not using the bristles. This is a chip brush that I've used, I think now 6 times. And as the brushes get really, frayed, which I need for some things, I just snip it with scissors, and I'm gonna get out of this $5 or maybe $6 brush, I'm gonna get a lot of use out of it. So I'm just bring this over a little bit. Tapping. It takes a lot more time to tap than it does to actually just paint. But I want this to be Gothic BoHo. So as you see, I'm picking up now. I'm gonna see if I can get down here. Or better yet, I'm going to go ahead and transfer over to that part. Again, I'm thinking the sun is coming in from this way, and I'm envisioning it's going to hit just this part right here. I'm going to dip back into my Moonshine Metallic, which I just opened. Pull it off on the edge and put in the side bristles. But remember, I'm using mostly the side. So I'm going to start over here, kind of like I just did over there. Let's see if I can get in here. Oops, a little too far. Let's see what we got going now. So I am just tapping. See what happened? So it skipped this part because the side of the brush caught this part more. That is naturally how it would happen. So let your brush do the work. And then I'm tapping just here on this edge, and you see the side of the bristles came down and brought down. Again, that is fine. So now I'm going to tap to the side, and what's happening is because I'm using that, you see how it, let's see if you can see that. You can zoom in, if not, I don't want to make you guys sick. See how it's spraying out because of the bristles? That is custom organic. Let it go. Just let it go. Let the brush do its job. It takes longer to do, but gingerly. And I'm going to hit just the accents of this. Again, I'm using the side of my brush, so it's picking up those highlights, that accenting, with just the parts it wants to. I'm going to go up a little bit. Now I'm going to hit this. Can you see? Let me scoop up. Now, I'm going to hit this lip with the side and this lip. And yes, the brush is picking up more. See how there it's a thin line, here it's more splayed out. That's the brush doing its job. And then I'm just going to tap here at the bottom, and that's going to bring the splaying up. So remember, when you're tapping, whether you're tapping this way, which I call upright, or if you're tapping downwards, you get a little bit different outcome. And I know you guys can't see this, but when it dries, that metallic is really going to push it. See that? Now I could go around and do the whole thing and trim it out, and there's a possibility I might consider doing that, but right now I'm just trying to get the parts that I think that if the sun were coming in from the east or from right to left, it would be highlighting this, like almost with sunset. I know east to west is not sunset, but yes, the fan is blowing, you can see it, so it's going to be a little loud right here. So now I'm going to get my brush, and I am in the way, and I'm going to dip in just a little bit, let that come off, and then I'm going to swipe it, getting that excess off. Don't fling it because you'll have paint everywhere. Sit this jar down so I don't spill the whole thing, which I'm notorious for doing. And then I'm going to start, you may not can see this, I'm going to have to paint with my left hand. I'm tapping on the side. Tapping. Turn my brush a little bit, and that fan is drying out my brush, so I really should here. I'm gonna turn off the fan just for a minute. Can you guys see that? It's hard to see because the fan, and before you can really see it here, but it's hard when it's against another thing. So, and this is where I highlighted with the red, honky tonk red. Coming down, coming down, coming down, just tapping lightly. Again, the brush did that. It accented where it wanted. And I'm going to come down here to this side. It's going to catch some of that fan. There's a little accent that looks like a fan. And then I'm gonna come over and hit these edges. I'll let the brush do its job. See how it's picking up? And I'll only go a little bit. I might go a little subtle over here. Kind of taper it out. I'm going to come up here. The harder you push, the more smudge you're going to get, and then as you daintily want to come across, just do a light fanning out, and it tapers off just like the sunshine would. So there is that. That's how I'm going to do the whole piece. I'm going to go around all this piece. I'm going to go around the entire piece behind me and really make this a Gothic boho piece. It's going to be not for everyone, but it's going to be for some people, like myself. I was telling you guys before, if you want to erase something, take your original cobalt, and I'm just going to tap, tap, tap on some of that red that's poking through, and I'm erasing it. Right here. It's hard to hold the camera and do this sometimes. I'm erasing that a little bit. I'm going to erase a little bit here. See how it just erases it? Now, it's really bright because it's still drying and the other part's dried. So, don't get all crazy and think, oh, I did something wrong. Okay, right here. See? I just erased it back a little bit. Bring it back a little bit right here. See? You can erase. A little bit more here. See? You erased it. Not so bad. A little bit of the gold. If I want to erase just a little bit, tame it up. Tame it up. That's all you gotta do. Use this to dry erase. Feathering that in. Again, it's darker right now because it's wet, but when it dries, it will not look splotchy or what you might think splotchy is right now. Hey everyone, so I'm just finishing up with the fourth color. Using the metallic moonshines. It's a lot of accenting, so many different colors, a lot of details on this piece. Still drying, so that's why some places look darker than others. And the metallic gives it a really good sheen, which really needs to be seen in person. So I know it looks kind of just garish from straight ahead, but looks better in person always. So I know you guys freaked out, but look, now they're saved. Now someone's gonna love them and put them into some good use. Gothic BoHo revival. Hey everybody, so here are the two pieces. I'm shooting at this angle because I want to sit down for a little bit. I'm going to be using the Clear Coat Gloss by Dixie Belle. I decided instead of going with just a flat or satin, I wanted this to be really boho gothic and I want it to be glossy. So we're going with gloss, and normally I would use a sponge to apply this, the Dixie Belle sponge. I think because of all the detailing, the sponge, and I just decided I'm going to paint with this, the gloss, or this chip brush that I've been using. This is the chip brush I used for the entire project. Still got a lot of wear and tear on it. The thing with gloss is that you're gonna see brush marks. If you use the sponge, you see less brush marks because there are no brush marks. You're using a sponge. I'm okay with there being a little bit of brush marks because this has that look of suede-ish. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but basically I'm okay with that. Each project I choose, each project's different. So if you guys say you should have used the sponge, that's true in a lot of applications, but I've decided with this one, with all the detailing, I really want to get that gloss in there. And so with the sponge, I'd have to be pushing and dripping, and so I think, wait, howdy, I can't decide. I think I'm gonna go with my oval medium. So here it is, a brand new jar of glossy, and I've got a little paper towel in case there's a little bit of a drip, because there's going to be a tiny bit, but I'm just gonna barely tap into this gloss. You know what, before I do that, because it is new, I'm gonna just stir it just a minute. I'd already kind of tilted it and got it just to be on the safer side. I always like to stir my clear coats. I am just using the paintbrush that I use for detail work, the handle of it to stir. That's all you need. Okay. I don't think that was absolutely necessary, but it's always good just to go that extra step. So I'm going to just pull that right off there with a paper towel. Set that brush over there, and now I'm going to just again dip barely. I don't want a lot of extra. And then with gloss, you can really see it. So you want to choose spots and work on that one spot. So I'm going to just start here, and you can see instantly it starts to drip. And that's because I'm working on an angle. And just keep in mind, this may change the way it looks because it's wet. So don't freak out. Anytime you put wet over dry, it's going to look darker at first until it dries. Okay. And normally I wouldn't be turning my brush all these different ways because of brush marks, the possibility there might be some. But with this project, there are so many insets and reliefs and 3D parts that's why I'm really getting in there. And that's why I chose the oval medium. Really getting into these insets. And then I'm going to come back and feather to make sure there's no drips. Get in there. Just barely dipping. I mean, just barely dipping at all. Of course, that's right in the way, huh? Now I'm going to work on the next drawer. In the first swath, it's going to drip a little because there's a lot on the brush. I'm just going to pull it down, come across. Really want to get in between and underneath and around these handles, because with gloss you can see anywhere you've missed. If you're just starting out and you want to know, use the flat clear coat, because if you miss a spot, it will not show up. Gloss is the least forgiving if you make a mistake and just absolutely accidentally miss a spot. And with clear coats, you really don't want to work them. You want to just put them on there and let them be. But I am really working this one because I have to get into all those spots. So breaking the rules, because this is the one time, and as you start to paint and work on your projects, you'll learn. Okay, again, barely dipping in here. Barely, hardly. There. And I can tell already that I'm gonna love this. Okay, so I get a little bit in these insets. Come around, get a good liberal amount on here. It's better to do a couple thin coats than one big gloopy coat, so I will be going over this probably 3 times. But I'm just showing you how I'm applying it without a sponge, that it's okay. And I am dipping back in, and I am getting a little bit of blue contamination. I'm okay with that because I work on so many projects that I can just swath that. I'm used to that. If you're worried, pour it into a little paper plate or bowl or a glass jar, you know, bowl, and use that so you don't contaminate it all. And that's not coming off the project, it's coming off the fact this brush I still had, even though I cleaned it out really well, there's still just a little bit and it reactivates. All right, now I'm going to do the side where the veneer was coming off. I don't want the gloss to drip over those spots that are broken in the veneer, so I'm going to do what I tell you not to do when you use the brush on a flat, the sponge on a flat. I tell you just to swipe down once, remove it, let it dry. Even if you missed a spot, then go back over. With this particular piece, I am going all different ways because of the veneer issues. And then you got to go back and make sure there's no drips, because drips with glossy will really make itself known. All right, don't want to forget this panel here. I didn't, yeah. So I'm going to take the brush and just gingerly go across and back. And you don't want to, again, overwork the clear coat. Normally you would just go across once and then come back. But again, this is one of those exceptions to the rule. So please don't watch my other videos and go, but you said, yes. Every once in a while, there's an exception to the rule. And you'll learn as you go. I'm really having to work this because there's so, like I said, many insets and different levels on this piece of furniture. So I can see though, even with using the glossy, if you overwork it, you're going to get streaks. And even though it's clear, you'll be able to see those streaks. So I'm just going to gingerly dip, get some of that excess off, and then I'm going to start on this panel here. I want to turn my brush all the different angles to get all around this decorative piece. And it'll try to sit here in the little insets. And you just want to make sure to go back and make sure it's not pooling there. You would just take your brush like this and get any excess out. This is what I was talking about. Don't overwork your clear coat, but in this case, the exception to the rule. And I'm going to get a little bit in between there. Okay, now I'm just going to make sure. And then I'm going to take each part by itself, and that way I make sure really good coverage. There's already spots that are drying over here, so just to let you know, I'm going to do this a few more minutes, and then you've got the idea. I'm not going to film the whole thing. This will probably take me a good hour, only because I'm really making sure, like right now, there's no pooling. Go back over here. I already see a little bit of pooling no matter how hard you work. You've got to get that pooling. You would hate to put all these hours. I think I have 12 hours into both these pieces. All these hours into doing this, and at the very last step, get some pooling where it kind of takes away from it. What's today? Today's Friday. So on Monday when I started this project, I said it's probably going to take 5 to 7 days total, and we're right on track. And I even had to take a day because of protesting and such in Tallahassee. I didn't want to be in the area. They were telling us to avoid the area just in case, blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, a gentleman in a red truck did hit some of the protesters. Everybody was okay, but it's crazy right now. All over. Okay, so I'm really over. I can feel when it starts to drag like you do in the paint, you know that's when you would wet your brush, but you do not wet your brush with clear coat. So when it starts to drag, I know I'm overworking it, which is a big no-no. Again, if I had the sponge applicator, that would be fine on just these basics parts, but to get into all these, the sponge would have done it, but I want control to make sure. Okay, just going over these little raised places to make sure there's no pooling. All right, you guys, I'm going to continue this on this entire piece, including what you can't see, the edge of the mirror all the way up and around top, and then I'm going to do the piece behind me, which you can see here, and also in the mirror reflection. I'm going to have to do both sides, tops, this as well, and the top. So there you go. That's how you're going to clear coat with gloss and break the rules as far as using a sponge. It's okay to use a brush too. Thank you.